Greetings summoners, and the first split of the season is already in full swing, and Riot, after the fairly modest patches at the beginning of the year, have finally got down to balance fixes. And in this patch we have many buffs, a few nerfs, large changes to the jungle champion pool, rune reworks and much more. As always, we'll go through all the lanes from top to support and have a look at the most significant changes, as well as give you a piece of advice on how to adapt to the meta. And speaking of adapting to the meta, League of Legends is a very complex game as it requires good mechanics and understanding of its macro. You need to have an idea of what all champions are capable of, consider your team's position, manage minion waves and much more. The most convenient and effective way to get all the essential information in the shortest time is to take our course. The course is created by professional players and contains more than 60 video guides that cover all possible game aspects. It's divided into convenient steps that will take you from the very basics of the game and right to the top of it. But that's not all. Right now there is a whopping 80% discount, so hurry up guys, as your rank won't rise by itself. And on this note, let's get started. Traditionally we'll start with the top lane. Finally, Sona's and Soraka's reign is over, and although Sona can still be played in a solo lane, the increased mana costs will make it much more difficult. At the same time, Riot strikes Soraka's solo lane potency really hard. They shred her base stats, self-heal and bonus MS on Q. On the other hand, they buffed her W, which now costs no HP at the maximum rank, while Soraka is rejuvenated. So say bye-bye to Soraka top. Singed also gets a yellow card, but this nerf won't affect his win rate. Moving on to the good news, Garen, Gnaw and Jayce get buffed. Garen receives increased Q-empowered basic attack damage ratio, increased W resistances after max from enemy kills, and increased W shield. This is a serious buff, the champion's win rate will surely grow, so basically it's time to spin pals. Gnaw's base MS increased, passive mini Gnaw MS decreased, our damage ratios increased. However, this buff is unlikely to increase his popularity. Gnaw is still a champion for the pro scene. In solo queue it is extremely difficult to implement his ultimate at the right time, as there are too many random skirmishes in such matches. Jayce, base mana and mana growth increased. Q base damage increased as well. That's a nice but yet insufficient buff. The current meta is not very suitable for Jayce, but in certain mid-game setups he can snowball matches and quickly finish them. No nerfs to junglers in this patch, but very few buffs as well. Amumu gets the second or the third buff in a row. R cooldown decreased and now stops dashes. Rammus's base AS and AS ratio increased. As you can see, Riot are systematically buffing tanks. Previously they empowered Zac and Sejuani. Amumu's and Rammus's win rates will remain almost the same, but these champions are already quite strong in low ranks. Udyr now benefits from Cloud Drake. The time between stance changes decreased per Cloud Drake buff, but the real problem of this champion is low damage in the Tiger and Phoenix stances. This season Riot are actively changing the jungle, but not all players like the changes. Ganks are now a high-risk, high-reward feature. The experience gained from jungle monsters is lower than before, so many players lack the necessary experience. The number of junglers in solo queue has dramatically dropped, and the number of auto-fill junglers has significantly increased. To somewhat compensate for this misalignment, Riot buff a number of top and mid lane champions and give them better tools to jungle with. So if you get auto-filled, you can at least stick to your comfort pick. You do have to learn how to jungle though, otherwise it just won't work. A couple of champions you should pay special attention to are Mordekaiser and Diana. These two were good junglers even before this patch. The increased damage will make their first rotation even easier. Zed and Talon can also clear the jungle rather fast and snowball just as well as in the mid lane. Feel free to pick these champions once you get auto-filled. Just a couple of changes in the mid lane. Sylas Q damage increased later. To be honest, after the rework, Sylas hasn't been doing so well. The Hextech Proto Belter 1 build has dragged his win rate to nearly 50%, but not higher than that. If you are not an OTP Sylas, keep this champion for later. Aurelion Sol gets slightly nerfed. Despite his high win rate, Sol is a rare guest in the Summoner's Rift. We've already discussed the phenomenon of this champion and explained why he has such a high win rate in our top 10 OP champions with a high skill cap video. It's quite simple, he is stronger than many other champions and is usually played by OTP players. Anyway, the nerf is insignificant and it won't affect the champion's gameplay. Next, bot lane. Caitlyn's bonus AS at level 1 increased and now equals 20%. The push potential of this lane bully will rise even more. Lately, Caitlyn's win rate has decreased and her peak rate in Diamond has dropped from 25% to 12%. The reason is that Caitlyn has a good synergy with tank initiators, but at the moment they're dominated by ardent support. We don't recommend that you pick Caitlyn unless you know what support you're going to play with. Make sure you have Janna, Nami or Bard. Aphelios gets nerfed. Crescendum sentries die faster, have a lower number of attacks and are easier to destroy. Our range decreased by 300 units, so now Aphelios has to be more mindful about his positioning. And the most important thing, players can now see both of Aphelios' guns. The guns Aphelios is holding are shown next to his health bar. And last but not least, supports. As Sona and Soraka were mentioned in the top lane section, only Lux is left here. The buff is very insignificant as Lux gets plus 10 bonus damage but minus 10% damage ratio. However, they grant her decreased Q cooldown early on. This won't make Lux a meta support as she provides too little sustain compared to such champions as Nami, Sona, Janna or even Bard. And now runes and summoner spells. Exhaust gets buffed, but it's still inferior to Ignite, but it does work against bot lane assassins, say Yasuo. What's more important is the adjustments of Hail of Blades. Its cooldown increased from 4 to 8 seconds, but it can now recharge in combat, thus being suitable for marksmen. The maximum time between attacks increased. Riot are basically attempting to broaden Hail of Blades use cases since it's currently taken by junglers. Now it's supposed to work both in lane and in teamfights. You can pick it for marksmen who bet on short trades. That's Jhin, Senna, maybe Xayah and Varus. Besides, this rune can be used in solo lanes by Queen or Teemo. Now the last thing on our list is the Cinder Hulk line of items. The items that ignite the enemy become more powerful in combination with immobilizing abilities. Once every 10 seconds your next immobilizing ability deals extra damage, which scales with your bonus health. The same amount of damage is dealt by a Fire Nova around your champion. This is a nice buff to jungle and top lane tanks. The damage is by all means not huge, but it will help tanks with the first jungle clear, because it is activated by any control ability, even Trundle's Pillar. It will also increase the damage at later stages. As you see, not only tank champions are buffed, but also their items. Tank meta incoming. And that's pretty much it for now, guys. Patch 10.4 has brought many changes, but this is just the beginning of the season. It's going to be even more interesting. On this note, thank you so much for watching this video, and as always, good luck in your solo queue.